Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm your host, Emily. I'm excited about my guest tonight. Allie is a queer disabled small business owner living in Southeast Kansas. They're an ex-evangelical millennial. They are the founder of Q Space, a local not-for-profit and community of support for LGBTQIAP+ people in Southeast Kansas, and have recently started the Witchy Bibliophile, where they upcycle, forage, and grow witchy items for your magical needs. Their tagline is, "If I'm not digestible to you, you can choke." Welcome to the show, Allie.
Hi, Emily. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, for being willing to come on and share your story. For the record, starting off, how do you identify?
So my name's Allie, and I use they, them, and fae, fair pronouns. I identify as non-binary or gender fluid or gender fae. All of those terms kind of work for me. And I also identify as bisexual and queer.
Jumping into your story with my favorite question, did you get to choose your name? And if so, how?
Well, my full name is Allison, and I don't use that. I use my nickname Allie, and I have most of my life, and I never really identified with my full name. But that's something that I've been thinking more about lately.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I hear the word Allison, I just cringe.
Okay.
And I think I'm in trouble or I'm about to go to the doctor because, at the doctor, they used your full name and then they call you in and you're like, and I have white coat syndrome and I'm chronically ill. So it's a great mixture there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, Allie just kind of suits me. I think I've thought a little bit about other names, but then I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this just kind of suits me.
When did you first realize or start to identify that the term non-binary or gender fluid was what fit with you? When did you come to terms with that?
Yeah, so I'm a late bloomer. So I came out as bisexual about 4 years ago. Around that same time, I think I just started really evaluating and reflecting on who I am as a person and who I want to be, kind of unpacking past traumas, all of that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I started to think about it. I'm like, well, what about my gender? I'm like, well, I just think that I'm a girl. I guess that's what I was told. So I guess that's fine. But I always came back to it. I always would think about it all the time. And I'm like, am I? I don't know. Am I a girl? I don't know. And then I was like, do cis people think about this all the time? And I think I tweeted that one time. I'm like, do cis people think about this all the time? And people are like, no. And I was like, oh, I had several friends, come out as either non-binary or trans. And so it made me think about it, even more and just over the last few years. I didn't come out officially until last year. And it was actually non-binary. I think it was non-binary awareness day that I was like, hey, to my friends, I was like, hey, I don't think I'm a girl. Maybe try using they, them pronouns for me. And one of my friends did so on Facebook because I like to forage. And that summer I was just driving around, like you do in Kansas, and picking wildflowers. And so I was picking wildflowers and putting them in vases and delivering them to my friends. And I delivered them to one of my friends. And, they posted about it on Facebook and tagged me and used they, them pronouns in the post. And I was just like, oh, I just got this feeling gender euphoria feeling. I was like, oh, that's me. That's me. And anytime I get that feeling, it's just it's just I'm settling in a little bit more to my identity and who I am. Mm-hmm. And I've had those little snippets, and they happen more often. And the more I'm with my people who affirm who I am. I don't have really anything against she pronouns. I think that they're just kind of meh. I guess I'm like, pronouns don't exactly equal gender. People could call me she, and I would still be non-binary. I don't know if it was also just like the love and intention put in from a friend too, of affirming like my exploration as well. But they and Faye definitely seem to fit better and make me feel more myself in my own skin.
Mm-hmm. I found that as I've moved through my transition and learned to accept myself and my identity, looking back at my past, at my childhood, I can see sort of breadcrumbs and the things that I might have, a more astute person might have been able to see and go, oh yeah, that this is leading somewhere. Looking back for you, do you have some of those memories that provide a roadmap for where you are now?
Oh, so many. Yes. Being a late bloomer with, sexuality and gender identity, like I have, what I call like bisexual flashbacks. And now I'm having, the non-binary flashbacks too, of those moments where you're like, oh, why didn't anyone tell me? And I felt that way too. Like the way that my friends reacted when I told them was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. Okay. And I was like, how long have you known? Like,
and why didn't you tell me?
Yeah. Which is fine, but I was like, yeah, I feel like you knew before I did. And they're like, you've been like talking about this on Twitter and like in person for like a while now. And I'm like, I have. I didn't really recognize it either, or maybe I thought I was being covert in my like questioning around them, but I wasn't. As a kid, I think I never really, I had, I was kind of split into or very forced into the gender role of, being a girl and what a girl looks like and what a girl dresses like. I think when I was young, they kind of let me do whatever I want, right? Whenever you're like 6 and under, you can wear what you want and do what you want. They're just like, yeah, they're just a child. They play in the same box. They get muddy. They run around. They climb trees. They play dress up in their siblings' clothes. For me, like it wasn't, me dressing up in like different genders' clothes or necessarily, but just like being able to dress like how I wanted. As I grow older, that's when those expectations come in of, oh, you need a bra now. Oh, you're going to start your period soon. Like those types of things. I was having this conversation with someone recently where I'm like, do you ever just like forget that you have a uterus? Like, and they were like, no. She was like, no. And I'm like, well, sometimes I just forget. Like, I feel like it shouldn't be there. Like, I just should be like an empty vessel or something. Like, and I'm also I'm a person who is child free and wants to be child free too. I always felt like you should just have like body parts or genitals that just were the most convenient for you. Like, I was like, I felt like, I was kind of jealous of my brothers who got to like pee standing up. And I was like, I would try to pee standing up too. And I'd be like, this is difficult. Like, wouldn't it be easier if I had different equipment here? Not necessarily that I like wanted a penis, but like, I was like, whatever's convenient in the moment, like it doesn't really matter to me.
You mentioned clothing before and how that didn't fit for you. Do you feel now a pressure to present in a way that's non-binary, to find what that is and how you're supposed to look? Or do you feel like you're free to just truly wear whatever you want to wear?
That depends on the day. I really do like fashion and like putting together, different outfits, whether they're high femme outfits or more androgynous outfits, or what I feel like is a little mask, and kind of playing with that a little bit. What I feel is kind of like a mask outfit, other people don't see as one. A lot of times, how I present, I kind of had this realization recently, I think during a presentation I was giving for Q space to a group of people. I was just like, because we were talking about passing, and I'm like, I'm never going to pass. I'm never going to walk into a room and someone be like, oh, that person's non-binary. Maybe unless we as a society kind of change. From what I see, people put people in boxes.
Mm-hmm.
People put people in a binary of you're either a boy or a girl, a man or a woman, when they see you. And, we're taught that from birth, right? Mm-hmm. We're taught that to put people in those boxes and those categories. And that's why people get kind of confused, and older people get confused more often. I think I shaved my head, right when the pandemic started. So almost 2 years ago. And I did have shorter hair then. So it wasn't super extreme. Like I didn't have hair as long as yours, Emily, but I had a pixie cut and, it was getting long and everything was closed down. And I think I used that as kind of an excuse, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to shave my head. Like, but I've always wanted to do it. Always wanted to do it. And when I did it, I felt so empowered. I was just like, man, I'm a boss. I'm a badass. Oh my God. Like this is me. And now I shave my head like every couple weeks. I just shaved it this morning. That gives me gender euphoria too. And like, nice. This is the only thing I think that confuses people a little bit. Sometimes I had an older gentleman ask me, he just kind of looked at me. He's like, are you a boy or a girl?
Well, that's the perfect opportunity because you're like, no.
No, neither. Like in those situations, you kind of like when you're out and about and you don't know someone, you're like, okay, do I want to have this conversation with someone or do I want to just be like, neither and then run away? Or because I'm not someone, I'm not someone that lies ever unless I feel completely unsafe. And in that moment, I didn't feel unsafe. He was just really confused. Mm-hmm. And I was like, do I explain this to him or not? But so there are varying moments. And those are like, I'm like, I have confused you. This is the point. I have this mug right here. It says like causing confusion for the straights. And it's the gender fay flag. And I made this mug. Because me and my friend were talking about this, who they are also non-binary, and an acquaintance of ours who seemed to have an attraction to my friend, but was very confused about it because they're like, well, what does this now mean about my sexuality? Mm-hmm. And like, am I straight or not? Am I still straight if like I'm attracted to like a non-binary person? And we were joking. We're like, we just can cause confusion for the straights all the time.
One thing that you mentioned there was the fact that people like to put people in boxes and there's this side or that side and that's all that people can handle. And that made me think like we can understand toddler and, child and preteen or tween and teen and young adult and then, someone who's elderly, dragging this out too long, but we can understand as a society, there are proven pieces where it's like we can understand a spectrum.
I like to talk about that all the time. I'm like, what is binary anyway? It's a social construct. Even biological sex isn't binary. Mm-hmm. You know how many varying chromosomes people can have, and who goes and gets their chromosomes tested, right? Does every single person who is like, I am biologically female or biologically male, do they actually know if they are? They may be intersex, mm-hmm. And that's something that I bring up a lot too. I'm like, nothing is really binary, is it?
How does the disability affect and pertain to your gender identity exploration?
Disability really makes you think about your relationship with your body and whether, you're physically disabled or or not. I'm chronically ill. I have POTS, or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, another tongue twister for you. And I also have probably many undiagnosed things. My doctor suspects I have fibromyalgia. But when people look at me, just like when they look at me and they're thinking about my gender identity, they also see what they think is a healthy person, right? Oh, like she doesn't look sick. This person doesn't look sick. They don't act sick all the time. They seem fine. Like I told you before, like if someone asked me about, like, are you a boy or a girl, or asked me about my gender, I would first kind of evaluate if I was safe, right? Mm-hmm. In this period of time, it's a little safer for me to be out as queer and non-binary than out as disabled. I have a cane, and I don't use it all the time because I don't need to use it all the time. My disability is dynamic, so I could be feeling okay one day, and then the next day I can't get off the couch. I can't do anything for myself. Mm-hmm. So that chronic pain and that chronic fatigue kind of go up and down. There's a spectrum there too. Yeah. So it changes every day. When I've had to use my cane, there are so many stares and so many looks that I get because I appear to be a young, healthy person. I've had moments where, I go to a doctor appointment and I'm like, well, I don't necessarily need my cane today, but if I brought my cane, would I be taken more seriously by my doctor?
Well, I got to assume with something that's dynamic like that sort of comes and goes, it's really hard to convince healthcare people sometimes that it is real and that you really are experiencing that. Have you had a lot of that experience with the healthcare professionals?
I say that I probably have some undiagnosed things is because, I think that being diagnosed is a privilege in itself, because I had symptoms that progressively got worse with my POTS, starting at, age 21 up until age 26 is whenever I decided I'm going to try to get diagnosed. And like, I think that I have this, which I pretty much diagnosed myself because I was correct. And, I had read all the things about, what you can do to control or minimize your symptoms and to live your life the best way possible. And I was doing those things and still, struggling. So I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to get this diagnosis. It took me over a year of fighting, over $10,000 in medical debt. And I had to squeeze it out of that cardiologist because what they were focusing on was the fact that when I had my tilt table test, which is a fun test where they strap you to a table and then slowly move the table up to where you're standing, strapped to a table. You're strapped to a table just in case you faint, which you probably will faint the way they do the test if you have dysautonomia or some form of POTS, which I did. They had me up, they were talking to me, passed out. So whenever I had that follow-up appointment, I'm like, okay, he's going to tell me everything. He's going to tell me exactly when my blood pressure dropped. He's going to tell me when, how the diagnosis was formed and all this different stuff. And he was just like, we want to put you on this medication because this will blah, 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 blah. And I was like, so tell me exactly what happened in the test. Tell me when this, he's like, oh, I don't have that in front of me. I was like, what is the point of this appointment? Mm-hmm. I want to know what happened and how, obviously this is going to, affect my life. It still is affecting my life. When I freaking stand up from a sitting to standing position, my body freaks out. It's like when, you have your dash on your car and all your lights come on. My body's like, what? Why are we standing? And, that's something, the average person can do. Stand up without having their body freak out on them. And I'm like, okay, how are we going to make this happen? And he's given me a med. I'm like, okay, fine. And that, I've had, good experiences with medication and bad experiences. And this is one of those that wasn't so good, and tanked my potassium levels and gave me like crippling cramps all throughout my body. I went through all of that to get that diagnosis, and nothing changed for me. I was still the one in charge of my health. I was still the one who was supposed to be doing all the research. I was still the one who was, trying different compression wear, figuring out what worked. For myself, I was the one creating herbal concoctions to help myself. It wasn't doctors. It wasn't medical professionals. So after that, I was like, what's the point of getting any diagnosis for a chronically ill person where, that's not going to go away and there's no cure if doctors aren't going to be helping you with managing your symptoms and being able to live your life? Like, what's the point?
How were you able to do research that led you down the right path to actually diagnosing what it was that you had?
Yeah. So figuring out, my symptoms and everything led me to, honestly, I don't even know. I went through so many rabbit holes from originally whenever I was looking up, and figuring out like, okay, I have some form of dysautonomia, which is autonomic dysfunction or dysfunction of the autonomic system, which, pretty much does everything in your body, almost. And
so you narrowed it down to you had a body problem. Sweet. Yeah. Cool.
Which like, I knew I had like inappropriate sinus tachycardia, which pretty much means that my heart beats really fast sometimes. Mm-hmm. And that, along with the fainting, along with, some other things, I led me to this. And then showed me, other symptoms of autonomic dysfunction. I'm like, oh yeah, I have those too. Then going into those online support groups and online like Facebook groups of people who actually had dysautonomia or POTS, and talking through like their experiences, talking to real people who were experiencing the same things that I was. Mm-hmm. I'm a very organized person for the most part. So I have a document where I keep a list of all my medications and supplements I'm taking and herbs. Mm-hmm. For, whenever the doctor asks, I'm like, I'm not going to list these off. Here's a piece of paper. And I also have a list of, every reoccurring symptom that I have ever had. And so when a new one comes up, I'm like, okay, am I dying? One of the symptoms that I have had for the longest amount of time is like dizziness and vertigo. I learned Benadryl helped. And so I thought it was like some allergy symptom. And I'm like, dizziness, allergies. I'm like, I don't know. So I just like, Benadryl works. If I take Benadryl every night, then I'm mostly not dizzy. And if I miss tonight, then I would be like on the floor, wouldn't be able to move. And but I would still have some dizzy days, even with taking the Benadryl. But for the most part, I was functional. And I really wanted to figure out that symptom at one point. And I got sent to so many ear, nose, and throat doctors because I got allergy tests done. And the allergy test told me I was only allergic to the 2 types of dust mites there are, right? And for environmental allergies. And that it wasn't even an extreme allergy, like on a scale of 1 to 5, it was like a 2. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense either, because I have allergy symptoms all year round and I do everything you're supposed to do when you have a dust mite allergy. And I was sent to all these ENTs to figure out the dizziness thing, because a lot of times if your hearing is off in one ear versus the other, like you hear better in one ear than the other, that'll cause dizziness and vertigo. And I didn't even know that was a thing. And so I'm like, why are you testing my hearing? I'm dizzy. And they're like, oh, your hearing is perfect. I'm like, okay, great. And they looked at my ears and they're like, your ears are also perfect. I had 4 ENTs tell me that my ears, not the outside, okay? Not the outside, but the inside of my ears, like my ear canal, my eardrum
Mm-hmm.
should be in a textbook. And I was like, great. Like, this doesn't help me. So I'm doing all the things to figure it out, and to try to figure out what works for me, because every individual is different. Whenever you look in those support groups too, there are some things that help a lot of people, but then they don't help others.
I'm still struck by the similarities between this and, gender identity, in that the thing that really helped you figure this out and find it was finding other people with similar stories. When it comes to gender, did you have anybody that you looked at as a role model, or perhaps somebody that you had as a confidant to help guide you through?
Not any like one particular person, I don't think. But I think that I have really, really good friends who are family, who, are all queer in some way or some form or another, who are open to, asking those questions and helping kind of figure out how you feel about, different things, and kind of, exploring that unknown when you're figuring things out. And just kind of being like, yeah, we can try out those pronouns. Let's see how you feel about them when we, reference you. And if, and they check in and they're like, oh, so did that work for you? Like, do you want me to keep using that pronoun? Also, for like gender fluidity, kind of talking about like, maybe some days like that pronoun doesn't sound right. that doesn't fit me. Or for me, it's more not so much pronouns as, just other words used to reference people, like just phrases people say, like, hey, lady. Oh, I hate being called lady. I'm like, oh, please do not call me a lady. Really want a pin that says that. I made up a little graphic for my friends that, and I'm like, this is a ever working graphic. Like, it may change tomorrow. Like, who knows? But it checked off like pronouns I like terms of endearment, or like phrases that you can, use to refer to me. And then ones that I'm not really sure about, like, maybe use this and then maybe we can figure it out if I like it or not. And then ones that I'm like, please don't call me that. I'm still figuring it out, like, as I go. And so if a friend calls me something or refers to me, I don't know, by something, and I'm like, oh, ooh, I didn't like that. They'll be like, okay, noted. Like, noted for the future. Or if I'm like, oh, like, I really liked how you called me that. Like, it's something that we communicate back and forth. I think that we should always be kind of figuring stuff out. Like, we should never be completely in one place. We should always be open to change. And there's a quote, I have it on my wall right here, so I'm looking at it, like, you're allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously.
As you've started to explore this, like I said, again, that you're fairly new to this. We talked a little bit about coming out to your circle of friends, and everybody was sort of like, yeah, we know. What was your experience in coming out to family, and how did you approach that?
Whenever I came out as bisexual a few years ago, I kind of like made a big deal about it. Like, not a huge deal about it, but I was just kind of like, I was terrified, really, to come out to family, to come out, especially to my biological family. And so, I like wrote this whole letter to my mom and like met her in person, even though she like lives like thousands of miles away. For this, I was just like, kind of like, I'm done. Like, I'm done coming out in like really extravagant ways, I guess. And so I posted like on social media and was just kind of like, hey, this is me. Some of you know, some of you don't. Now you do. Like, and, some, and, my biological family did not has not even talked to me about it, has not mentioned it to me, which is something that they do. They pretend things don't exist that they are uncomfortable with, because if they do say something, because they're still very much evangelical, they know that I will be upset and make boundaries. And so they don't want that to happen. So they just kind of like have this weird, like neutral relationship with me where we talk about very mundane things like the weather. And they pretend that I'm not a queer disabled witch. Because I'm not avoiding it or anything, but I'm not like purposely bringing it up all the time. I am not speaking with my biological father at the moment, because I set up those boundaries, and because he said really terrible things to me after I came out as bisexual. And so then I was just like, well, I don't really want you in my life, so you don't get access to me. And that's been very awkward for the rest of my family. So that's been fun. For my spouse's family, it's been completely different. First of all, my mother-in-law like missed the announcement on Facebook. But then saw I think I updated my profile picture and I put a little commentary that said like, these titties are non-binary too, or something like that. And she texted me and she was like, is this some millennial like lingo that I don't understand? Or are you coming out as non-binary? Like, and I was like, well, I already came out, but I think you missed it. Like, sorry. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, when did this happen? Like, I haven't been on Facebook. And I'm like, I came out on all the social medias, but okay. And we kind of had like this text exchange about it, that was actually super cute, because she was like, yeah, she's like, I understand like binary transition and like what that looks like and stuff. She's like, but like, I'm going to work on like figuring this out, And so I was just like, well, just because have you watched The Good Place?
Yes. Great show.
So I was like, just imagine I'm Janet, like I'm not a girl. And, and I'm obviously not a boy either. And she's like, oh, that's perfect. Okay.
found a framing for it that could sink in for her. Yes. That's great.
I think that's where, representation matters in a lot of things too, is it helps, family understand their loved ones as well as people seeing themselves. Otherwise, most people just were like cool and moved on or unfriended me, either one of them. One or the other.
Isn't it nice, the quiet, you are so afraid when you come out of the negative reaction and all of the vitriol you'll get from all the people that and it's just like you either get support or like maybe some questions from the ones that are struggling, and then the ones that truly have a problem just sort of fade away. It's like, oh, that's nice.
Fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, the in-between people, really bothers me more than just the people who unfriend and leave your life. Like, the people who try to stick around but aren't affirming, and you have to navigate, boundaries and, okay, where is the line for my mental health and, my sanity, versus like the people who are just like, okay, see ya. I've decided right now I'm a militant bitch.
I like it. I love that level of self-respect. I think that's kind of the main place that comes from, that not only self-respect, but that confidence in yourself that like, I am who I am. I deserve to be here. I deserve to be who I am. I deserve to be safe and comfortable in that. And no one has the right to step on that, no matter what their station is in life or their relation to me. I usually say in this spot, what transition means to you. I wouldn't, as a non-binary person, I feel like it's less of a transition, but more of a gender exploration journey. What is that process? What is it meant for you?
I think that being able to just say it out loud, like, I'm non-binary, I am gender fluid, I don't fit in the gender binary. Like, saying those things out loud gives myself permission to explore gender in a way that isn't socially acceptable, I guess you could say. So I guess you could say my transition is never ending. And that is exciting. Being able to explore and portray my gender in different ways that feel euphoric and wonderful to me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I am non-binary, but that doesn't mean that I owe you androgyny, right?
Is there anything you feel that you've been able to accomplish specifically because of your gender exploration and what this has unlocked for you?
Friendships and beautiful conversations, and seeing cis people start to get it a little bit. And so being able to, something that we do with Q Spaces, do a kind of LGBTQ 101 trainings and more in-depth trainings for the community. And so being able to lead those trainings now and kind of use myself as an example and talk through that with people, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, I can see it now because, yeah, I'm standing there in front of them. And so, and also having like conversations with people. I was correcting someone at a local bar, like when they misgendered my friend, and the person was like, he was like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't really understand like non-binary. And I was like, that's okay. You don't have to understand it. Like, I'm like, you just have to like respect it. And they were like, so they use they, and I was like, yes. And and they're like, I don't think I've ever met a non-binary person before. And I was like, well, I'm non-binary too. And they're just like, oh. I could just see their mind exploding, right? For me personally, to be as open as possible with the people around me and on social media, and being as authentic and honest as possible, because I know that that matters to people. It matters to me to see those stories, and it matters to other people to see those stories.
So do you have a favorite thing that you've learned along your journey?
I've become a lot more comfortable with not knowing things. And saying like, I don't know. I don't have to be the person that knows everything to you. I can share my story, but that doesn't mean I'm like the expert on this at all. Mm-hmm. And it also means that my, like I said, I see my identity as very fluid, and so change is imminent. And that's something that as a person who likes routine, as a person who likes organization, a person who likes things in their place, I honestly don't like being in the in-between, but then I just suddenly find myself there all the time. Like, because it's scary. And like being in the in-between, as far as like being non-binary, being bisexual, being someone who says both all the time, like, or all of the above, is something that I find myself in all the time, in the crossroads. The more I find myself there, the more I feel just maybe a little bit more comfortable there. But also it reminds me that like, it's okay to be uncomfortable. And that kind of pushes me to find myself even more, if that makes sense. Like, every time I'm a little bit more uncomfortable, then like, I'm like, oh, I figured this out and I figured that out, and I meet these people, and that's when life gets better.
What advice do you have for young or closeted trans folks out there, trans, non-binary, gender fluid, anybody out there that's going through some of these things and questioning who they are?
finding people with similar stories, but also just finding people who are safe, people who will accept you for who you are. It doesn't matter, what their identity is or what their story is, but I think you can find the safe people and be able to slowly grow like your network of trust and being able to be yourself in your world.
Allie, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. I think we've got a lot of key things out, and it's always really exciting to be able to talk to somebody outside of the gender binary, which is where I fit and where most of the people that I run into for whatever reason do. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of that.
Thank you so much for having me, Emily. It's been a pleasure.